Hello and welcome to this video, and this is the second episode or installment, is probably a better way to describe this, of Andy's Sunday School. Let's do that again. Hello and welcome to this video, and this is going to be the second installment of Andy's Sunday School. I'm out and about on the premises where my studio is based, here at the Jellyman's factory, part of the Jellyman's Heritage Art Charity. We've set up here to try and turn this old Victorian factory into a place where creativity can take place. I really believe that creativity is essential for a healthy society, and I think you can judge how healthy a society is by how great its creative works are. Behind me you can see the old carpet factory here, and I'm walking towards the Victorian mill where they used to build rope probably 170 years ago. And the video started, I had the River Stour behind me, gently oozing its way through these beautiful surroundings on this sort of autumnal day, but it's quite warm. So, and behind me you can see that incredible Victorian factory lying desolate, waiting for creativity or some sort of creative ideas to wake it up. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do with these videos. I'm trying to go through the elements of music by trying to place emphasis on the creative aspect. And creativity is open to anybody who has a reaction to the world around them. And art is about trying to capture that so other people can see it. I'm trying to do that here today with this video. Rather than being cooped up in my studio, to be out and about so you can get a feeling of suddenly being dropped into this incredible place and being aware of the sounds that are all around. This is where creativity starts. Right, but let's head up to the studio. But before we head up to the studio, those of you who watched last week will remember my composition for 2 posts. Well, these are the posts. They've become a little bit famous now, haven't they? Beautiful. And we discovered that last week, didn't we? Let's head in and head on up to my studio. So, last week we introduced these 2 elements in music, harmony and rhythm. And we created a composition where we disregarded both of those, using a guitar and piano to create random notes on the drums, and that sounded a little bit like this. Today, what I want to do is explore these 2 elements separately. So we're going to be making a composition today, one that has harmony, and all we're going to do is just pluck notes out of the C major scale, and we're just going to play those without any rhythm. So I have here, as you can see, this is my little studio here, my drums, it's all set up ready to go. So why don't we get on with this and see what happens. Let's look at some notes. This is the guitar, it's a musical instrument, it plays notes. I'm going to play you a note now. That is the note C. Now the reason you can hear a note is because when I pluck the string, it vibrates. It's wobbling, it's vibrating at a certain speed. Now normally a metal string, if it was plucked, would make a sound, but it'd be very quiet. But this string goes down to here and then it's bolted into here very tightly with these pegs, and this string is linked to this, which is a resonant wooden box. It resonates. So when you do hit that string like that, it vibrates, the vibrations runs into here, it gets sort of amplified by this wooden case, and then it comes out this hole here. Now this string is vibrating, in other words, it's going backwards and forth, it's vibrating at 131 times a second. Okay? And that is how we can hear a note, because basically we hit that string, we pluck it, it vibrates the guitar, those vibrations are amplified in this sort of resonant chamber, and then the vibrations come out and it pushes the air in a certain way. And those air molecules go right across to your ear, and well, to my ear, they go straight to my ear. Yours, they go into a microphone, which is then grated into a digital signal. It's really, really complex. But the point is those vibrations, those regular vibrations reach your ear, and your ear turns them into a note. You must realize that this note does not exist there, it does not exist in here, and it does not exist in the room. This note is existed entirely in our heads. We have an apparatus in us, our ears and our brain, that when regular vibrations come in, it is turned into a mysterious thing called sound, which we can perceive. And that perception is called consciousness. And we have no understanding of what that is. Remember that. Anyway, so when I pluck a string, this is now the note E. It's vibrating at a certain speed. If I go exactly halfway down the string and fret it here, so that's exactly, you can imagine now that this string is going to vibrate at exactly double the speed. When that happens, we get what is called an octave. These notes aren't the same, but they sound the same, don't they? That's a low version of that note. That's a high version of that note. This note here, C, which is vibrating at 131 times a second. If I now go to the halfway point, which would be here, that note is vibrating at 262 times a second, okay? Now, once we have those two parameters of sound, we could chop these up into sections and get different notes in between. Now, for a thing that is so complex that I will not get into here, we have ended up chopping them into 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then we reach the next octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And there's the one off the fretboard, okay? So that's what notes are. But what I want to do now is I want to get into actually what is going on with the note, what it's made out of, so you can picture it in a different way. And we're going to do that on the computer behind me. We're going to use the Cubase, the digital audio workstation I use to explore exactly what a note is. So here we are in Cubase, and I have programmed our hi-hat, and you can see the hi-hats here as audio. These little dots are pulses of hi-hat. So if I hit play, you will hear those hi-hats. So that is a pulse, but because it's slow, it sounds rhythmical to us rather than like pitch, okay? Now, this Cubase arrangement is set to 60 beats per minute. So the clock that we are sticking stuff onto is clicking at 60 beats a minute, and that sounds like this. Okay, so if it's 60 beats per minute, that click that you're hearing, that beat, the clock of this tune is actually seconds. This is clocked at 60 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're seconds, okay? So we know where we're at now. Now, I have programmed, if you look, 8 hi-hats inside every second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, the reason I've done that is so I can calculate how many hi-hats I have, okay? Now, I have there in front of you 131 hi-hats programmed, okay? Now, that's very interesting because remember what we said about the note C is that's vibrating 131 times in 1 second, okay? So do you want to see what 131 hi-hats looks like? I will just contract this view here. That is a 100. If I could just line it up with the camera, sorry. That there, that is 131 hi-hats. And that's what this is what they sound like. So those of you who are able to count very fast will verify that that was 131 hi-hats. Now what I could do is I could take that file and I can compress that in to 1 second. What you're looking at is exactly the same part there, but this section here that we've got is 1 second, okay? And so if I play that, you're now going to hear 131 hi-hats in 1 second. So those hi-hats will be pulsing at the same speed that a note C pulses at, right? So let's see what we get. If I could just move this over here a little bit. When we play that. So as you can see, we get a note. Let's have a listen to that note again, shall we? So we're hearing 131 hi-hats being played in 1 second. It sounds like a note. Now this is my note C. Listen. Now that's slightly sharp because there's a few discrepancies, but you can hear that's pretty much the note C. Slightly flat. So that is what a note is. It is things vibrating regularly in the universe. We could discover notes in the universe. Last week when we went out and about, I found 2 notes that were contained inside 2 metal posts. When I hit them, they struck and it sounded like a note. So we have notes. If we double the speed of the note, we have an octave. Then we could chop that up into 12 parts, right? So I'll remind you again, there's the note A. There's the octave of A. We've chopped it into 12 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's chopped into 12 parts. Now, some musical terminology so we can now maneuver around these parts, these 12 notes that we've got. Every single instrument organizes its 12 notes like that, one after the other. And when we organize notes in this way, that is called chromatic. So when I say something is chromatic, it means it's using all 12 notes. Now, we can name notes in terms of their names. We can say that's the note C, or that's B flat or F, and I'm not gone there yet today. Or we can name them relative to the distance of the starting notes. So if we have this E here, this note E, we could start on that, and then we can just go up to the next note. And that distance we call a semitone or a half step, okay? If we go up 2, right, that is called a tone or a whole step. Now I'm going to be using, because I'm English, semitones and tones, right? So there's the starting note, go up a semitone. There's my starting note, we can go up a tone, all right? Now, once we've done that, we can now organize these 12 notes into smaller groups of 12 notes, right? And when we start to organize these notes into smaller groups, we have things that are called scales or chords or dyads or all sorts of different names. That does not matter. But when you make a piece of music, you cannot play all 12 notes at the same time. Well, you could, but it wouldn't give you much maneuvering. So the thing about melody, and I said melody is so important, we're going to get deeply into melody on these videos. But melody is made out of choosing some of these notes, right? Music theory is just names for collections of notes. Harmonic theory, that is. It's just names for collections of notes. And if you want to copy what somebody has done before, then you might need to go, what's the name of that sound there that somebody else has done? And they will go, oh, that's a C major 7 chord, or that's a Lydian scale or Lydian mode. They're just names for sounds that already exist. And that is one way of approaching harmony, but it's only 50% of the way. The other 50% is where you create your own systems. So you can take this octave and say, well, I'm going to make a system that's out of these notes. And you're allowed to do that. If you want to know how I pick those notes, I just pick the ones that had the spots on them. I just played the notes that have got the spots, right? But in Western harmony and many other harmonic systems, the basic scale is the major scale. Now, what's interesting about notes is when something resonates, it doesn't resonate with just one frequency. So if I pluck this string here, right, and then just touch the string here, don't know if you can hear that. We get an octave. So when we hit that string, the loudest note is the low note E, but there's another octave above it, which is also ringing. And then inside that, there are other overtones. They're called overtones. They're tones that exist over the top of the root note. So you would get this. That's another note. That's another one. That's another one. And now I'm not playing the notes on the guitar. I am plucking out by putting my finger there. I'm getting to the string to vibrate so you only hear that specific overtone. Now those notes I just played, there were 7 of them. And if you line them all up, they would create a scale. And it's called the major scale. So the major scale isn't just any old scale. It's made out of these lovely overtones. Now, if we take our octave and we have the root E and we have the octave, if we want to know what the major scale would be between these two notes of E, in other words, E major scale, we use a system that goes like this. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. 2 tones and a semitone. And then 3 tones and a semitone. This is very important. That's something you should remember. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Or if you use whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And that's why I don't like saying that. I like tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, right? Now, if you remember on my guitar, if you want to unlock how this instrument works, the first thing I'd ask myself is this: how do the tones and semitone works? Because most people can get a note out of anything. So you go up the trumpet, you blow it, you go up to the piano and press it, and you go, right, what do I do to go up a tone? That would be a good question. And on a guitar, to go up a tone, you go up 2 frets. 1, 2. So that's a tone. So we're going to go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Up a tone, up a tone, up a semitone, up a tone, up a tone, upper tone, semitone. Now, we have a choice here. We can now take these notes and start to stack them on top of each other. So I could take that note and this note, the E, and I can put those two notes together. And I get what's called a dyad. A dyad is like a chord with only two notes. And then I can take this, which is that note there, but down an octave, right? And that's the note C. And I can put that together, we'll get a chord. C major chord. Now this is where everyone starts to get really confused. On this video, I want to try and explain it in a way that comes from another angle. But basically, if you stack these notes from this major scale on top of each other, you will get a ton of chords, and all those chords will go together. They will sound nice with each other. And when you pick just the notes from one scale and don't move to any other scales, because remember there's 12 notes here, so there's 12 major scales. When we do that, what we have is a thing called diatonic harmony. And diatonic harmony means you are picking all from the same scale, all right? And we have two choices. We can first like stack them up on top of each other, or we could take a rhythm, which is the other aspect of music. Remember last week we had the time-based horizontal bits, which was rhythm and time, and then we have harmony, which is the arrangement of pitch vertically. So if I take a rhythm like ba da ba da 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 ba da 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 da, and I apply it to these notes, I now have a melody. Melodies are the conjunction between rhythm and harmony notes, okay? And what's very interesting is what we've just looked at is each note is actually made out of a pulse. It's rhythmical. So there's a relationship between rhythm and harmony. They're actually the same thing, but in music, we pull them apart into two separate entities. But when we hear melody, we actually hear the two things combined. Now, on this YouTube channel, I have said over and over again that music's about the dialectic and it embodies the dialectic. And now I've explained how it does, because time and space is a dialectic, right? Harmony, which goes back to like Pythagorean harmony, and the idea of exactly this is what Pythagoras did. He took a string, he broke it into an octave, and then he looked at the overtone series, and he looked at all different things, and he started to look at the ratios, which we're going to go have a look at in a minute. And he said that when something's in harmony, it's because the ratios are correct. In other words, it's rational. So our idea of the irrational and the rational actually comes from our concept of harmony. Harmony is seen as the embodiment of the rational. Rhythm, which is our time-based view, could be seen as chaos. And that's interesting, because if we look at actually the world that we live in, if we were only to exist in a spatial world, right, that would be a chaotic place. But if we only lived in a time-based world, that would be a highly ordered place, where we were predicting the future based upon the past, right? And so we start to, as we discuss this, we just start to see that harmony and rhythm are the same thing, and they're intertwined, but we separate them, but we bring them together in a melody. When we hear a lovely melody, it's an embodiment of the sublime. This is the esoteric things that I believe are hidden within music. And this is the stuff that no other music educator is going to draw your attention to. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to look at the idea of the rational and the irrational, and we're going to see how harmony is based upon ratios. Here, in this black part here, where my mouse is, we have a piece of audio that is playing 4 notes. You can see the notes down here. That is the note C. I'm going to play you that part. Now that C is pulsing at 60 beats per minute. So that C is happening every second. Now, I have got the octave of C here. This is the octave of C down here. If I just scoot it on down, that's the octave of C there in the black there. And that is playing at exactly double the speed. Right, so I'm going to add this octave in now. There's the octave on its own, and it's pulsing at double the speed. So what I've done here is I have the note, but the speed of the note is relative to the frequency of the note. So if the note C is a frequency, which means it's pulsing at 131 pulses a second, I have related that to the speed of that pulse. And so the 60 BPM is equal to the 131 in terms of like an equation, like a ratio, which means that if I take a note and then set it at 262 BPM, right, double, right, that note will not only be telling you the value of its note that you can hear, but it will be giving you something that relates to its frequency. And that's what we've got here. So as you've guessed, I have now taken a major chord and I have got now the note E, which is the third of a major chord, and that is pulsing at another speed, which is of a ratio 5/4. So that is the part that's got the note C. This here, the black bit, is equal to 1 second, and you can see we've got 4 C's, right? And then if we go down to this part here, which I've just now made black, in the space of those 4 notes here, we have 5 notes, and they occupy exactly the same space. Now, this is called a polyrhythm, right? And when we put these two rhythms together, a polyrhythm creates a new rhythm that's actually quite interesting. So if we play these together, it would sound like this. So in effect, if we took the notes C and E, which are harmonious, it's a major third, we'll get into that later. If we took that harmony and slowed it down, it would create a rhythm, and the rhythm would sound like that. If we then took that rhythm and speeded up, we would get the harmony. So if we think of pulse and time as being a note, we can see that certain rhythms create certain harmonies. And in this case, it is a 5/4. You can see it in front of you right now. A 5/4 ratio is equal to a major third. Now, if we go down to a fifth here, I have a fifth here, this one here, and this might be quite hard to see, but that we've actually got a 6/4 ratio. So that's what this would sound like if I just switch this off. So this is now a first and a fifth, and you'll hear that rhythm. Now that rhythm of ba da da da, ba da da da, ba da 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 is so simple that when we speed it up, it creates something that sounds very harmonious, and a first and a fifth sound very harmonious. The major third, however, which is 5/4, is actually a little bit more difficult, and so that is actually slightly less in tune than a fifth would be. I've actually put in as well a minor third, which is a minor chord, and a minor third is actually, believe it or not, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's your 6 pulses over these 5. It's a 6/5 ratio. And if I loop that up for you, now a 6/5 ratio comes around after a certain amount of bars, and it's actually in this case 5 bars. So we'll just loop that, make sure that's not there, and you will hear the minor third now, which is even more weirder. So that rhythm you're hearing is the rhythm of a minor third, and it's even more twisted, okay? If I now go back to our major chord here and put it all together, you will hear the rhythm of a first, a third, which is the third note of the major scale. We will see a fifth, right? If I just squeeze that down and just get it into your view here. Okay. In fact, I'll just angle the camera up a bit. So now we've got the four parts together. So that one there, that is your root, that is your third, that is your fifth, and that is your octave. That there is a major chord, and a major chord sounds like this, not only harmonically, but you can also hear the rhythmic aspect of a major chord. This is insane stuff. That is a major chord. Right, if we go to the minor chord here and listen to that one, the whole minor chord. So this is now first a flat third, a fifth, and an octave. We get this sound. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to run it from major to minor so that you could hear the sound of the major to minor change, but also hear how the rhythms change and how the ratios change. Now it's going to change. So when that minor third comes in, you can hear it's more rhythmically jarring. Okay, it's more rhythmically jarring. That is what chords are. They sound nice or less nice because of the amount of consonance or dissonance of the rhythm of the pulses inside it. Right? This is, I'm trying to show you how these things relate together and give you musicians who have a better understanding of this, a different view, and those of you starting off to understand why something is fundamentally harmonic. Now, there's no way on this video I'm going to be able to now show you all the things that you can organize these notes in, these 7 notes, because a major scale has 7 notes. I'm not going to be able to show you what major and minor are. We're going to be doing on that in this series, but for now, just understand that there is this way of constructing a major scale, and we can organize those notes on top of each other, and they will form sort of chords and harmony. And then if we take those harmonic notes and we organize those in time, we will get a melody. But in effect, that's a very complex way of just saying this. So, I thought it was in C major then. So, you can see that is melody is key. As soon as all this complexity to explain what's going on, and as soon as I play just random choices from in that case, the E major scale, if I just play those randomly but with confident rhythm, it makes sense. Isn't that interesting that we can make the harmony make sense by applying rhythm to it? Okay, and we could also make rhythm make sense by applying harmony to it. So if I was saying to get you to remember this rhythm, That's quite hard. Do it again. If I go. That's easier to remember the rhythm because you've now got a melody to latch on. Melody is key to music. Everyone say it's all about the song, it's all about the cooks. It's all about the melody. Even rhythmically, rhythms don't make sense until you apply different pitches to them. Now, those pitches might not be notes, they just be a frequency that's lower and higher. So here, I've got that. Those are two different notes. That's different to that there. And I'm also using dynamics as well. We're going to have a whole lesson on dynamics. Dynamics, rhythm and harmony put together. These are the things that make things musical. Once you know what that is, then you can sit down and start to do exercises that will develop your musicality. It will develop your improvisational skills, which in turn will develop your creative skills and give you the confidence to go, yeah, I can just pick up the guitar and pick some random notes. And by going, right, that's not very harmonic, so I'm going to really apply some rhythm to it. Right? And if something is harmonic, like say, so that's a fifth there. Remember, fifths are really harmonic. I don't have to apply so much rhythm now. So last week what I did was I created a completely random piece which had no harmony and no rhythm. It was just the 12 notes, and that sounded, you could describe it as avant-garde, let us say. What I'm going to do now is we're going to create a tune which is harmonic, so it's going to be based on the notes of C major. But no, actually, let's make it based on the notes of E, because that's the E major scale. So we're going to take the E major scale, and I'm just going to play random groups of notes, this time on a guitar and a bass, and I'm going to play the drums randomly. I am not going to listen to the parts when I put them down. I'm just going to put about 2 minutes of guitar down, 2 minutes of bass down, and then 2 minutes of drums down, and then we'll put it all together. We will explore what happens when you have no specific time or rhythm, but you have harmony together, to give you an idea of how harmony works and the effects that come from just harmony. So, E major scale sounds like this. And so I'm now going to play around about 2 minutes of random notes, but all the notes are coming from the E major scale. So shall we start? I am now going to put a bass line down using the notes of E major scale. Just those notes. I'm going to play unrhythmically. I'm also not going to listen to the guitar part I just did, so there's no influence by the rhythms that may be sort of lurking in there. It'll be completely random, so let's just hit it off. Okay, this will start there. The bit we're in is where I'm actually going to keep the bit when I just run up the major scale. Drums next. What's my approach? Flowing but unrhythmical, you know, so let's just drop that in, shall we? I'll just knock it into record. I've decided to put a little bit of piano down. So we'll just select a piano part here. We'll mute everything so we can't hear it, but we can see it, so we can see where it starts and stops. Remember what I said about the frame? Starting and stopping is very important. So we're going to start around about there.